But I think it's important to understand that each of these circles, so, there's an outer circle that forms one particular toroidal shape, and then each of the circles within that, and that forms, a grid pattern of these fields that are, all connected, all somewhat conjoined, but we're sitting inside a field. So it's not that there's something round and flat.
No.
It's actually spherical, and it's as far below as it is above.
So the other important thing that I'm not even sure if I've mentioned this to you, when I first started researching these stone circles in 2007, and we were flying around in the helicopter for a whole weekend, one of the things I noticed, which puzzled me, was that the walls of the stone circles, the original exterior walls, are not flat. They run like this.
It's undulating.
Undulating like a wave around. And then I was wondering, why would anybody build a wall that undulates like this? Well, once you realize we're dealing with sound, resonance, and frequency, and that the stone circles are the representation of the shape of the sound, or what's referred to as the cymatic shape, or the cymatic pattern that comes out of the earth at that specific point, that is why, because these are machines. Every stone circle is just an amplifier. It's an amplification device to take the subtle frequencies of the earth. The stones are packed on the shape of that sound as it manifests on the surface here, and that immediately creates an amplification device. And that amplification of the natural earth frequencies is what brings our bodies into natural harmony and resonance and coherence with the earth. And this is why people experience miraculous healing from all kinds of diseases.
Yeah, we live a life that's disconnected from those natural frequencies of the earth. So if you come here and you're in an amplified sphere of that,
yeah,
everything starts to align.
So I want to come back to your experience, your 3 nights that you spent here in a tent. John Paul came up here. We dropped him off in his little backpack in a tent, and he went into the wild. It wasn't as clear as this. It was all overgrown. It was wild. There were actually reasonably large trees here and weeds and bushes, so he couldn't really come into the center. So tell us what happened.
So in my tradition, you do what's called a vision quest. So you come and you fast and pray and you call for a vision. So you can be anywhere. And, I've done this in so many places where you come and you say, I'm going to commit to fasting and prayer for 3 days and 3 nights in the hopes that I'm able to make contact the spirit of the place. So there's a very funny beginning to this story, which was being knocked out for 13 hours.
Wow.
So the first day I sort of missed because I was in my tent thinking, I'm feeling a little, and I blacked out. And when I came to, I thought, I fainted or something, it could be very strong energy. I don't know what this is. And when I checked, my watch had been 13 hours.
Wow, I forgot. I remember you telling me that, but I forgot. And that's a very important piece of the story.
Yeah. So that was, taking everything that was my resonance and connecting it, however long it took, to make sure that it's in line, harmonized, synchronized to these frequencies. So when I crawled out of my tent going, oh my God, it's been 13 hours, there were 4 Anunnaki just hanging there waiting, and they just were waiting, and they said to me, so you wanted to have a chat. So for the next 3 days, they were my constant companions, and we did everything from, can I see what this looked like when it was actually in full operation? Can you explain what you were doing in this particular circle?
So what many people would want to know immediately, because you said there were 3 or 4 Anunnaki?
Yeah,
4 Anunnaki hanging there waiting to talk to you. The first thing that most people want to know, what do they look like? Did you actually see them in like a weird dimension, or were they just energetic forms?
So it's a bit of both. So my particular sight whisper thing is, if it's Thursday today in 2019, what I do is, it seems like the veil moves away and it's Thursday in whatever year. And so I don't necessarily meet a spirit that's the incredibly wise or the incredible guide or the knowledgeable. I'm just seeing whoever's there.
Okay.
So these 4 were engineers that were here working on this project. So I don't seem to get that kind of disconnected top view. I'm right in there. And this is whoever's here today doing whatever they're doing. So they're hanging, but because of what gets created by the control of the atmosphere here, they can manipulate gravity within this space quite easily. So they're hanging there, physically hanging there, because gravity is not operating the way it does for us here today, but similarly because they're in another dimension.
Yeah.
So I'm accessing a parallel reality of this space in a different time. So they were quite tall. I would have guessed 9-ish, 10-ish feet in height. They were much, much, much taller than me. They said, look, we can look however you are comfortable for us to look. But basically, they were humanoid shaped, 2 arms, 2 legs, a trunk, a head. And later on I would never see their faces very clearly. And it was at the end of the 3rd day, I said to them, so I've never really seen your faces very clearly. And they said, well, you won't like what you see. And I said, look, we've been together for 3 days. I think I can cope. And they said, okay. So that was when I finally got to see their faces. And it was not the human looking face that we have. But they said, we can make us appear to be whatever you want to look like.
Yeah.
So they were dressed in kind of just one long robe. You could see their arms. There weren't sleeves to them. So they were kind of tunicky tops. They had a very human looking arm, 5 fingers, but it was just a long sort of belted tunic. And it had kind of like an apron piece on the front. But I understood that was because they were dealing with atomically altered water and things. And there was splashage. So they were, they had a protection kind of apron thing.
Yeah, protection from 3D fallout.
Yeah. And so what was hanging in these circles was suspended water. And they would change the atomic weight of the water depending on the experiment that they were doing. So the circle that I did the most work on was where they were taking a plant that they had modified, and they did very delicate DNA modifications. But then you'd have to do something to make that hold, so that once the plant wouldn't just revert back or it wouldn't lose this delicate thing. And they would suspend the plant or the DNA or the seed or whatever in this bath. And they said it was the combination of the resonance of the rock, the particular sound of the rock, water, and sometimes the water was altered, and sunlight. And that would hold. So when I said to them, well, how can we use this circle? Is there anything we could do with this circle? And they said, sure. Anybody who'd had any procedure, so a broken bone, any medical procedure, counseling, where you had decided to let go of something, if you came into that circle and you had water, sunlight, and the frequency, whatever work had been done would now hold. So I'm very excited to explore the rest of these circles and see if we can figure out, get help from them to say, well, how can we use this healing energy? What can we do with these particular tones of these stones that all ring?
There's so much information. You spent 3 nights here. You wrote down a lot of material. You also recorded stuff, right, for yourself, and you transcribed all that, right? So hopefully in some of these recordings we can go through your experiences and share it, so people can experience it, us talking about it and unpacking and analyzing some of the things to the best of our analytical skills or abilities that we have. And see what wisdom we can share with those watching these videos. Anything else and important that you think we should share in this first introductory video?
I think it's the kind of the journey that you and I are embarking on now, which is about sound frequency. Because what's left here are these stones. So we know about the electromagnetic field of the stones. We know about that. The thing that I think is going to be really fun to unpack is what happens when we release these tones, right? So we've sampled one circle, and we found that the dominant pitch is 147 hertz. And when you start to unpack 147 and the mirror solfeggio frequencies of 147, you understand that it's particularly good for the spleen. You find that there are particular healing properties to these solfeggio frequencies. So I think the journey now is, what are all the rest of these sounds? And what do we do with these sounds? And do we need them to be the stones? Can we just understand and learn about the frequencies? There's so much healing, unpacking to do with these particular ringing stones.
Yeah, we spent a little bit of time today recording, maybe 100 or so ringing stones. We're going to be recording a lot more while you're here. And then we're going to be putting together a journey for future workshops and journeys of healing and wellness, both physical and spiritual, to bring people to the stone circles and do more experiments, do more research while we while we experience the healing properties of the stone circles.